lovely conversations with each other. One of my catchphrases is, the chat is where it's at, so absolutely. So this part of the session, we know how difficult it is sometimes with plenaries to hear every idea and every voice. So hence why we've got this sort of multi-level thing. So if you want to add anything to the Padlet, it's still open, the link is still on screen. If you want to say something, it'd be great to hear one thing from each group. It will appear in the Padlet with somebody's writing. Is it just there? Brilliant. Julian. Sorry, Julian. Also, if there's anything on paper and you just want to shove it in my hand or Lorraine's hand or Sue's hand at the end, great, we'll put them in and then we'll get them into the Padlet, because then we can magically turn the Padlet into a PDF and share it. And Lorraine, we can do things to it, and then it'll become Lorraine will decide the best way of sharing it. So hopefully then we'll capture everybody's ideas and make it as useful so that we can have a really, strong organic takeaway from today. So, is there a group that would like to just say, or just one thing? Who was one of the chair people from this end of the room? Who was? I can't remember who all the chairs were, Lorraine. Who were?
Well, let's go to Ruby at the back.
Okay, great. Just in. If I stand there, then Rory.
Yes, we went off topic a little bit for most of the conversation, so that's maybe just poor facilitation on my part. But there was good conversation, and I think one of the main things that someone raised regarding our tasty morsel was a point that Suzanne made about kind of maybe reframing dementia. We've applied it more widely to the aging process. So Suzanne spoke about dementia as being something, or was it Sue? Sue, sorry, spoke about something being, dementia being maybe being neurodivergent as opposed to, I don't know, mental deterioration or whatever. And we found that framing very interesting and thought maybe that could be applied to the aging process more generally. And I guess we then considered how creating it, that's like a narrative that needs to change the way that we view aging, and intergenerational practice can be like a key mechanism to change that narrative. So by bringing younger people in with older people and everyone in between, we can look at the way that attitudes, we can change the attitudes that young people have towards older people, and then aging doesn't become this sort of negative thing as it's often perceived, but is actually viewed quite positively in a sort of different light. Does anyone in my group want to take that any further?
That's brilliant.
Love it. Just a nugget. That's great. We'll get 4 or 5 nuggets now, and then I'll make the Padlet appear in a second, and then you can see that there's lots of. We're going to all put on the panels tonight of intergenerational wisdom. So, is there another facilitator, Lorraine? Tell me. Shanine.
Hi. Out of all the things, we had an excellent facilitator in Sue, and she kept us in check, but we thought fundamental to us making a difference was to keep the network going, and that was for a number of reasons. Sharing good case studies, sharing good practice, having potential champions, helping people to develop their ideas, and possibly having a closed Facebook page to be able to do that. So there's quite lots of different branches around keeping the network going. Brilliant,
thank you. Right, Suzanne, you're there in my
Charlotte's going to feedback.
All right, great. Charlotte.
A lot of us, I think, felt that our morsel that really was quite powerful was the trauma that Suzanne talked about, and really understanding quite what an effect relatively small things can have on our babies and young people from a young age. So we had a bit of discussion around that, spent quite a bit of time chatting about that. One of the things that Lorna had raised was, how do we support the parents, though? You have a child in the supermarket that is having a tantrum, but there's so much else going on for that parent. How do we help that parent? Does that parent know that they need help? Would they ask for help? And a point that we came to later was getting out into the community and asking, what do you need from us? You know, we're the support network, but we don't want to do unto you. What do you need? How can we help you? So we had a lot of sort of quite organic conversation around it without necessarily eating all the courses in the right order. Lorraine, sorry. We had our dessert first.
Yeah, expect nothing.
So.
Yeah, ours was more tapas.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
It was a smorgasbord.
So I think where we
Buffet.
kind of came to was, again, like Shanine says, the idea of the continuing with this collaboration, more collaboration, but you know, really practical, active collaboration, not just talking about it. Let's do it. Let's stay in touch. Face-to-face works well because we can have these conversations and we can make links and we can support each other. So. Yeah, keep up the good work, and maybe we can all share our details so that we can continue to work together. I'm sure I haven't covered everything. Is there anything else that from our group that you want to say?
Spectacular.
Is that it?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a clown in every supermarket.
And a clown in a supermarket.
I prefer the idea of a fool, a wise fool, because some folk. Clowns are ambivalent to some people. The idea of a fool, a jester in the supermarket, I think is a cracking idea. Bring back the jesters.
You want to do it, don't you?
Me, yeah. You should see me when I go shopping. That's why I'm only allowed online these days. Right. Who else have I
I
forgotten?
could go. I think I've put
Great,
it on
Caroline.
I think Susan wrote it on the Padlet, so I'll read it off for you. So it says a need for a physical and mental space to develop intergenerational work. To involve a range of people, spaces needs to be welcoming and suitable. This is from the Apple Crumble group. But I suppose it was really, it was great to be here, and we sort of trying to think how we know that these spaces can be used, but we sort of know it and then we don't follow through sometimes. So I suppose it's looking at how we can use spaces across East Lothian and elsewhere. Across Scotland, in fact, to try and cultivate some of the work that we've talked about. That was really sort of more than that. I think we talked about a lot of things, but spaces was very clearly something, and who owns what space when young people feel they want to have a territory, but at the same time, how can we make that territory open to other groups and things like that. So it was a bit of that conversation.
Brilliant, thank you.
I was an absolute rubbish facilitator. We didn't stick to any of the tasks. We had the most amazing conversation. I don't know where Jane is. She's going to feed back.
Oh, right. Well, thank you, Pat. Well, we had a wide-ranging discussion, and it was about the power of connections, how many older people were a bit hesitant and lonely about having that first contact with volunteers. Or with people of any age might be in that position. So all our conversations was about taking a long-term approach. So you can't do anything in a day. If you're going to work together on a project, then you're going to have to do it for a long time. Let it build and grow and take its own organic course. So Kirsty gave us some brilliant examples from Dunbar Grammar, which involved a trip to Barra with their older friends and some of the young people, where they spent a week together going mad. I think we also we spoke a lot about breaking down barriers and building trust. And again, that's part of that long-termism. Can't do it overnight. But if you do it right, it doesn't just affect the person, younger and the older person, but it builds out into the communities and the families round about them. Again, Kirsty said that she had had people coming through her projects at Dunbar Grammar School who volunteered and eventually managed to parry that into a social work career. So it's that sort of community investment has an enormous impact. And I think again, with funding long term, we all moaned about the need to fill in 75-page applications to the National Lottery for funding that lasted for a year or 2 years. And then something needs to be done with funders across the board to stop thinking in silos about how they fund it. It's not just for young people, not just for old people, it's just for people. And also speaking to them about making long-term investments, so things can bed in, and at the end of 5 years, 10 years, you have time to look for other investment or make it self-funded, whatever. But a year or 2 years is just not enough. And the last thing was that relationships between younger people and older people are two-way streets. So it's not just all about young people taking older people out or making them meals or chatting to them. It's also about all that wisdom that you get from old people. Surrogate grandparents, they provide a wide range of roles. So the young people are also learning from older people, but teaching them too. The old people might be life skills or practical skills, and the younger people can supply other life skills and much needed IT skills. So I think that's what we covered. We did have a lot more, but I think those are the top things. Sorry about that.
One thing that came up in our group that follows on Fiona question using the word project, which actually opened up quite a lot for us about being too short term and happening to people rather than truly collaboratively, and short term rather than really changing practice and making long term changes.
That's exactly right.
Maybe we don't refuse to use the word or something.
Yeah, I find it really useful to challenge certain received words like learning. There's some great discussion about the learnification. Everything's learning now, so is that the best word? Gerby Esther and Emma was really talking about that, and that's, as an educator, that's quite an interesting discussion. The word learning can sometimes be a barrier.
As a project manager, it's
yeah. We talk about outdoor learning up here, but it's really just about being outdoors.
Yeah. It's not really about a project if it works properly. It's about making a long-standing change.
Absolutely.
Probably a good time just to bring it back to intergenerational practice as well, and just say that the foundations of intergenerational practice are based on co-design, collaboration, co-production. At no point in time does this belong to the people who decided to start it, in a sense, unless that was the people who are saying we're starting something and then there's someone else to develop it. So if it's not relational, and if it's not based on those principles, it's not got a rights-based approach, then it really is an intergenerational practice. It might be an intergenerational meeting. It might be an opportunity it could be grown from, but it is not intergenerational practice. So whatever words you use round about it, when somebody says, I'm going to do a project, I don't mind. As long as you understand that project's not something for 6 weeks. It's a lifetime project. If you want to call it a project, call it a project. But I think that's understanding the philosophy and the principles around intergenerational practice is really important. So not, what does it always say? Not about us, without us.
Well, that's a kind of well done rights phrase. Yeah, nothing about us without us. It's interesting, projects are really not helpful because that's what we do at school. When we were talking things like the VSAL funding, we talked about capacity boost. And so short-term funding has the purpose of boosting capacity, it has a particular focus. It's certainly not to run something long-term. And I think we should refuse to do things that need to be long-term on trying to patch up small amounts of money to keep things going. I really do think we ought to start saying no. I reserve the right to choose when I say no. But that's one of my aspirations, is to stop trying to fill gaps in the system by wearing myself and people like Lorene out and not making the changes that we need to make.
That's a great thought. So,
Alan,
So our group was, I think, the smallest group, but it meant we had the best, most deep discussions. There was four or five of us rather than the 6 or 7. But in seriousness, I'll just summarise what we talked about under the dessert part, which was the with no limit on time, resources, etc. What would the ideal look like? And the story was definitely there around communities being at the heart of identifying the needs and the aspirations, but using research and academic support for what we know might work and how to get that to work to link that with policy and policy makers, to take that to local government, to national government, so that funding and resource is applied not in a project by project, massive form, short term, but in a stable, sustainable way. So that was hopefully the sort of end of the discussion of the dinner, the idealised system. We know we're not there, we know that's not what it looks like. But the little nugget, the last little nugget that was the sort of summary of all the discussions through the dinner courses was, the nugget was, it's all about connected, caring communities. That might be different flavours for different communities, it might be different needs and requirements, different dish sizes to really stretch the analogy. But caring, connected communities was the nugget that we felt was the thread through all of our discussions, both in the session but also today.
Thank you. So as you can see, the Padlet's kind of building. It's got. You can see where the line is. It keeps on going down the page. So there's heaps and heaps of great ideas, and so we'll continue to build on that. I think at this point, if I remember the programme, I invite Suzanne to just bring things together. Your final thoughts, and then.